Mallory, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
So can we get a confirmation that you can see the lovely Mallory Erickson in the stage? Awesome. Okay, we got a lot going on today. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand it over to Mallory for a really exciting session. I think all of you are going to get a lot of benefit about. After that, we are going to kind of mosey on into, and let me just double check our agenda. It's been a busy morning. Yeah, right after this, we're going to kind of lean into, just so it loads. Apologies, folks. Well, okay. Good. We can see her. Awesome. So yeah, what we'll do is we got this awesome session now. And then afterwards, checking on the rest of today as a reminder, we have our on-demand time after this. So this is time for yourself. If you want to go take a break, that's great. If you needed to contact our team, this is a good time to do that, to kind of work out any questions you may have. But also go over to the on-demand section and the sponsor expo to ask any questions for that. Or check out some of the sessions, including a session that Mallory recorded with Kashana Palmer that we can do. After that, and we will send an email and check the lobby. If you scroll down on the lobby, there's a section for messages. We're going to send this all out. We're going to pin it to the event. We're learning on the fly here, folks. It's the virtual world. After the on-demand hour, we're going to beam out talk some of the stuff that you just heard. I'll join again live to talk about some of the things that we're doing for you for free for end of the year resources to help you. And then we'll go into all our product sessions. So that's what we're going to include in the lobby, and it's like, okay, what product session is where? Just to make that very clear. Those are all free. Everybody can jump into those. No ticket questions about that. It's all good. And then and forms. We know people are going to love the forms one, but we got a lot of stuff, QuickBooks, all that. So I'm going to stop talking, other than the fact that then join us for a social hour. Get a drink with us. Mallory, I don't know if you're going to be able to join us for that. You could do drink, and we got a jazz concert. So
Wow.
You ready to roll?
I am ready to roll. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm going to zip it. That's it. Just want to do some table setting as we're all catching our breath.
No, thank you. Thank you. I know
Mallory Erickson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. I am going to dive right in because we only have 30 minutes together. But I'm so excited to be with all of you today. So let's just kick this off and dive right in. Have you ever tried to start a new routine, and when it doesn't work, you might hear that mean voice in your head saying something like, oh, like you never stick to it, or you're so bad at this, you always give up. So I want to tell you something. That mean inner voice that everyone has, by the way, is totally full of it, because you do actually have what it takes to build whatever habit you want. The problem is that we haven't been taught how to build habits correctly. Desired habits and behaviors need to be designed, and habit building is an iterative and interactive practice. So if you can adopt a growth mindset around habit design and release yourself from that personal judgment about you being good enough, you're going to start to see just how powerful habit and behavior design really are. So you can probably already tell what the session is about, but just to confirm you are in the right place, if you want to learn about the 5 fundraising habits that every fundraiser needs now, and we're going to be talking about habits both in terms of how you interact with your funders, but also for your fundraising team and for you as an individual. So if we haven't already met, it is so nice to meet you. My name is Mallory Erickson. I'm an executive coach and fundraising consultant. I'm the creator of the Power Partners Formula, which is my signature course, and the host of a new podcast, What the Fundraising. The podcast is so proud to be a sponsor of this conference as well. And most importantly, I'm a fierce advocate for the nonprofit sector. I have spent the past 15 years working exclusively in it. And while I love it and I believe in its potential to transform the world, I also see the stigmas, taboos, and limiting beliefs that are holding this sector back, both structurally and inside each of us as leaders and fundraisers. I'm so grateful again for Neon having me today to talk about one of my favorite topics, fundraising habits. And I'm so grateful for all of you and the work that you're doing to make this world a better place. So thank you for being here. Just to give you a little bit of background on me, and I don't know who else can relate to this, like let us know in the chat, but I accidentally became a fundraiser. I started to get promoted up through the ranks and found myself in a managing director role and then an executive director role that came with big fundraising responsibilities. And I had high hopes about what this might mean for me. But if I'm being totally honest, I really hated fundraising. Like I was running this nonprofit, feeling like I needed to put on this appearance everywhere, that I had it all together, but every day was a constant hustle. I was so burnt out and overwhelmed all the time. So I just want to say, man, it's October. There's a lot of grinding happening right now. So if you are coming to this session today feeling the same way, I just want to say, like, I have been exactly where you are. And I really hit a breaking point where I thought about leaving the nonprofit sector, but had this sort of lucky fusion of life experiences where I went through executive coach certification, was trained in behavior change and habit design, got to work with folks at IDEO on design thinking. And those experiences and frameworks fundamentally changed the way that I felt about fundraising and my success. And today they're a huge part of my course, the Power Partners Formula, and what we're going to be talking about today, right? Okay, so today we are talking about 5 of my favorite fundraising habit hacks from Power Partners that will help you raise more immediately, okay? And I just want to say, I'm going to move through this content quickly. I wanted to give you as much as I could in our 30 minutes together. So I am not going to watch the chat the whole time. Allison is there, might drop some links in there for you, or I'll be able to connect with you after, but I wanted to give you as much as possible. And if you're someone who really likes to work through a digital workbook while you listen, I'm a teacher in a past life, then we've made one for you. So you can just head on over to MalloryErickson.com/neon, download that now, or just sit back and enjoy. Okay, great. So I want to make sure I give credit to my teacher and mentor, Dr. BJ Fogg. He's a Stanford behavior scientist and the author of the book Tiny Habits. His scientific research around habit building informs all of the habits that I've designed that I'm sharing with you today. So if you want to learn more about his model and framework, you should definitely go listen to this What the Fundraising episode with him. I think Allison will drop that in the chat as well, and check out his other work because it is amazing. Okay. So before we talk about the 5 habits specifically, we need to take a step back and understand that a huge component of what gets in our way as fundraisers is the fear of fundraising. Sometimes consciously, but often unconsciously. And so we need to start this whole process by shining some light on that so that we have awareness around where and how we need to design habits so that they're effective. A huge component of my work is around the emotions of fundraising, where they come from and how we control them. And I don't mean control them because feeling uncomfortable is bad, right? Or because there's anything wrong with your emotions. Judging yourself is literally the last thing that I want you to take away from this. But plenty of people want to feel differently about fundraising. And that's where I come in, right? Both in terms of how we can take more control over our emotions and how we can design habits that help us overcome the fear that we might be feeling, right? Because it's no problem at all for you to feel nervous or to have some fear before a donor meeting, right? That's totally normal. The challenge is when the fear or nervousness holds you back from taking an action that you want to take, say, sending out that donor email because deep down you're actually really afraid of having that meeting, right? That's when we really want to address the fears, right? So the way to deal with our fear is not to say things like, be positive or be confident, right? That doesn't work. Like putting a mantra on our mugs doesn't work, right? True mindset work, executive coaching work starts with understanding how we actually feel and why. So the way we understand this is through something called the cognitive behavior loop. This is the framework that our thoughts and our beliefs inform the way we feel and ultimately how we show up, right? Which then directly impacts our results. So you might say fundraising is stressful, but that's actually not true. And before you leave, just hear me out for a second. Fundraising is just fundraising, right? What's stressful are the thoughts and the beliefs that we have about fundraising. I'm not good at this. That person hasn't responded to me in 48 hours. They're probably mad at me for sending that email. So and so didn't give last year. They're definitely not going to give again this year. So, how are we going to hit our goals, right? Or the one that I had for a long time, good fundraisers must not feel uncomfortable. That must mean I'm bad at it, right? Those thoughts and those beliefs, that's what makes fundraising stressful. And we need to be aware of those thoughts and those false narratives if we're going to overcome the fear of fundraising that holds us back in so many ways, right? And this loop is also really important to understand in terms of habit building, right? Because one of the ways we often self-sabotage around building habits is through self-judgment, right? Is that we're inside this loop. And so I really want to encourage you to keep this loop top of mind as we start to talk through these 5 habits, okay? Bring this new awareness with you. And we're going to jump in and we're going to start with habit number 1. So, habit number 1 is my fearless 15. Okay. So, the fearless 15 is that you spend the first 15 minutes of every day on 2 to 5 minute tasks that scare you. Ooh, okay. So when we have awareness around our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, we can then identify the activities that might trigger fear, right? So I want you to think for a second. What fundraising activities might create some fear or discomfort for you? And if you want to throw those in the chat and have some solidarity with your peers, it's always nice because so many of the things that we experience are universal, but we as fundraisers often feel alone and isolated in it, like we're the only ones that feel that way. So let us know, like, what are some of the fundraising activities that might create some fear or discomfort? And I know I'm on a little delay from all of you, so I'm going to keep going, but I hope you'll share those with one another, so that folks can see that, many of you are experiencing the same things. So many of my clients, when they first come to me, feel fear around activities like emailing a funder to have a meeting or finalizing a corporate sponsorship package, right? Like it's really done, right? Or final review or submitting of a proposal, or sometimes even making a thank you call to a new donor, right? So you might have other tasks that you mentioned in the chat. That's okay. Whatever evokes fear or nervousness for you is totally okay, right? Again, it is really important that you don't start judging yourself for that, but instead acknowledge and validate those feelings and then create a habit that helps you have moments of fearlessness that get you over the action line. And that's what the Fearless 15 is, right? We can address the fear by proactively designing for those behaviors. So why do I want you to do this in the first 15 minutes of your day? Okay, here's why. And as I go through this, I'm going to explain both the habit that I'm recommending for you and also a little bit of the background around habit design so that you can learn how to design some of your own habits too as we go through this. So, addressing some of your most stressful tasks first thing in the morning, specifically small tasks that take up an outsized amount of cognitive and emotional capacity because of the fears associated with them, has a number of different benefits. Okay. Benefit 1 is that it's a clear anchor to a behavior that you already take, right? So, every day you start your workday, right? You already have a behavior, a habit that you take every single day. And so if you anchor the Fearless 15 to the start of your day, that is more likely to be a habit that sticks, right? We also have a higher level of motivation in the morning. And when we get the things we're the most nervous about out of the way first thing in the morning, it can release a tremendous amount of stress around those tasks so that you can be more productive for the rest of the day. Okay. So that's habit number 1, the Fearless 15. Habit number 2 is called 5 and dive. So this is an example of using the habit design strategy of making an action smaller so that it's easier to do. So I talk about this a lot in my work, but we spend way too much time prospecting. Okay. So what Five and Dive does is it only allows you to prospect 5 donors at a time. And then you need to outreach. Then you need to engage them. Okay. And Neon actually makes this super easy with their fun, like heart function. So you can pick whatever donor list or segment you want, and then you just click that little heart in the upper right hand corner 5 times. Okay. And then those records automatically show up on your dashboard, and then you can engage them. Okay. So that is Five and Dive. Prospect 5, outreach, prospect 5, outreach, right? No more like million different prospect lists. We're doing that because we're feeling nervousness around the outreach part. So by decreasing the amount of prospects we need to start the outreach phase, it's going to make the action easier to do. Okay, that's habit number 2. I know I'm going quickly, but I want to give you these 5 in the time, the 30 minutes that we have. Okay, habit number 3 is bucket your time by funder type and interest. Okay. So this is using the habit design principle, again, of making the action easier to do and building on momentum. Okay. So I want to explain something really quickly. Anytime you are struggling to take on a certain habit, okay? Anytime you're struggling to take on a certain habit, the first thing you want to look at is how hard is it to do that thing? So a lot of times we think about our motivation, right? We're like, I'm not motivated to do that thing. But actually the impact, if you want to have the biggest impact on your ability to actually adopt that habit, what you want to look at first is how hard is that habit to do. And because fear and discomfort play such a big role in fundraising, one of the game changing habit hacks is to bucket your time by funder type and interest when it comes to outreach, right? So we already showed you Five and Dive. So decreasing the amount of prospecting you need to do before outreach. And then this way of bucketing time is going to make it even easier. So let me just back up quickly and say, when I was an executive director, I often felt like this, right? Like I had too many brain tabs and computer tabs open at the same time. And I know a lot of you can relate to this too, right? So I'm not sure if you're familiar or not with the concept of context switching, but context switching is when our brain needs to jump from one task to another, and it really decreases our productivity. We lose momentum in our ramp up time. So a lot of the time I see fundraisers bucket their fundraising time, right? They're like, Mallory, but I spent 2 hours just focused on fundraising. But still inside of that fundraising time, they're context switching by writing one major donor an email about this program, and then writing this corporate sponsor about this event, and then working on this grant application. And as they're switching back and forth between all of those different fundraising tasks, they're burning way too many brain calories. And you do need to be differentiating, of course, your outreach to different audiences and funder types. This is a huge foundational principle inside my work. But in order to give you the capacity to do that, it needs to come with a healthy habit around how to time bucket for fundraising in particular. Okay. So you do this by making outreach easier to do by first bucketing your time, period. So identifying those blocks on your calendar where you can be focused on fundraising. And then within those blocks, bucketing your fundraising time by the type of funder that you're reaching out to. So foundations, individuals, corporate partners, because the language is going to be more similar, right? And then looking even more deeply by segment and interest area, right? So even if you can focus just for 1 hour, for example, on communications related to, let's say, corporate partners who are aligned with your meal delivery truck service, okay? And you wrote a couple of emails on the same topic and with the same donor lens on and tapped into that same or related empathy, right? Just think about how much more that is going to optimize your brain power and energy, okay? Another example of this type of bucketing would be on Tuesdays, you're focusing only on leveraging like your everything involved with your 6th grade math education program to corporate social responsibility partners, right? So all of the language, all of the content, it's all coming from the same place. You guys, this is seriously game changing. Like when we think about the things, when I think about the things I teach inside Power Partners, this is one of the things that just really, this mixed with 5 and dive really starts to blow your results out of the water when you see the way this creates momentum in your fundraising work. Okay. So that is habit number 3, bucket your time by type of funder and interest area. I'm gonna take a quick sip of water. Okay. Habit number 4 is focus on hope. So hold on. The first 3 habits were habits really related to the behavior that you're doing externally, right? Donor facing, funder facing. This one is focused on you. So this is a habit to help with fundraising resistance or dread. And you might see this and think, okay, this seems kind of basic, but let me explain to you why this is so important. So, fundraising, as we keep talking about, naturally brings up a number of fears, one of which is rejection. So, one of the things is I think it's helpful if we are just more honest about this. Like we feel it, it's normal. I feel it too, right? But we do need to have some skills and habits to help us work through it, right? And that's where hope comes in. So, anytime we're trying to stay motivated when fear is involved, we need to be able to activate hope, right? So, okay, we're having trouble adopting a habit. The first thing we've done is we've looked at how hard that action is to do. We've made it as easy as possible. Now we can think a little bit about motivation, right? As soon as we've made it as easy as possible, we can think about motivation. And the important thing to understand with motivation is that motivation is actually the relationship between fear and hope. Fear naturally drives motivation down, and hope drives motivation up. So, you are all different people, right? The hundreds of people watching this right now, you are all different people. Different things make you hopeful, okay? You work for different organizations. There are different drivers behind why you're doing your work. So, I want to encourage you to create a personalized habit that helps you tap into that hope, right? So, this might be something like reading a student testimonial right before you go into a donor meeting, or watching a 30-second video that always, really brings up hope for you when you need to click submit on that grant application, right? That has definitely been done for a few weeks, but you've been tweaking little words here and there, but it's really like, oh, we don't want to press send, right? So figuring out what are the things related to your work, related to your life, related to who you are that increase hope for you, and anchor those to an action that you want to take, submitting that grant application, finishing your sponsorship proposal right before you walk into that donor meeting, right? See how it's anchored again? So you're going to walk into that donor meeting, right? That's an action that's definitely going to happen, that's definitely going to take place. So if you can tie a new habit to that around increasing hope in that moment, it's going to be really helpful. Okay. That is habit number 4, activating hope when you're feeling that resistance, when you're feeling that dread, activating hope. And then habit 5 is celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. So habit 5 is really a habit to sustain the other habits. And this again might be something where you're like, okay, duh, Mallory, but hold on a second. Because celebration, positive emotional connection is what encourages our body and our brain to actually program habits in. Okay. So it's more than just kind of a nice to have or a nice thing. This is actually what makes our brain and our body start to adopt these habits and keep them, keep ourselves going back to them. Okay. And here's what's really important about this. Raising money is not the only thing to celebrate. One of the biggest mistakes that I see in the sector and that I was guilty of as an executive director was celebrating the outcomes related to certain behaviors. But if we want to build better fundraising habits, we need to celebrate the completion of the habit itself. We need to celebrate the behavior itself. And I want to tell you that being able to celebrate small success is a super powerful thing, right? We have a lot of limiting beliefs in our culture about when we deserve to be celebrated. And in so many ways, it's hurting our ability to build sustainable habits, right? I'll have clients tell me sometimes, oh gosh, Mallory, like I don't deserve to celebrate the fact that I made 3 donor calls this week. I'm like, why not? And they're like, oh, because, it's only 3 calls and I should have made 20. And you guys, it's just not true. Like, we need to celebrate those 3 calls because guess what? It was the first time you made any calls. And so it actually was enough. And we need to stop, like I say, shooting all over ourselves and realize that celebrating the small wins, the habits, even celebrating failure because it taught us something. And now we can try a new habit, right? Is critical to habit building. I said at the very beginning, a big part of this is adopting that growth mindset and recognizing that this is a toolkit. This is an iterative process for you to try out these different habits, right? Make it tiny, make it easier to do, right? So I want you to think about this right now. What's one behavior that you want to start celebrating on your team? What's one fundraising behavior that you want to start celebrating on your team? Not the outcome, not the money, just the behavior. And I think it would be really fun if you want to put this into the chat too, because I bet you guys would get some great ideas from each other. Sorry, I keep seeing the chat and getting a little distracted. So throw into the chat, what's one fundraising behavior that you want to start publicly celebrating on your team? Not the outcome, not the money, just the behavior, because that's really what's going to start that habit to take hold. Okay. I know this was a very fast way to go over habit design, but these are really 5 game-changing habits for fundraisers. The Fearless 15, I would add that to your calendar right now. 5 and dive, only prospecting 5 folks at a time and then outreaching, bucketing your time by funder type and interest, focusing on hope, particularly in moments of resistance or dread, and then celebrate, 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 and creating habits of celebration around the work that and the behaviors that you want your team to take, right? So like if you are having trouble getting your team to take a specific action in neon or use neon for something, right? Then I would start with, okay, how can we make this action, the behavior we want to start, so easy to do? And how can we celebrate the action itself, right? So maybe it's logging into Neon every day right after blank, right? Anchor it to another activity, logging into Neon every day, and then celebrate the behavior, right? When we start smaller, when we anchor the behavior, and when we celebrate the behavior, that's really how these habits are building. And so I really encourage you, like as you're moving through the rest of this conference and you're thinking about other types of behaviors and habits that you want your team to be taking on related to your Neon software, think about the ways you can be designing those habits to make sure your team is adopting them and being celebrated in the process, and that you're designing the habits themselves, right? Them not doing it is not like a time to judge ourselves or each other, right? It's figuring out, okay, how can we better design this habit to make it something that we do? Okay, so I know we had a short time together and there's so much on this topic. So before we get to, I might have like 3 minutes of questions. I just want to invite you to watch my masterclass where I go over the entire blueprint behind Power Partners. It's not one of those webinars that's like a teaser to my course. You can literally take it, apply the blueprint, my whole process right away. But if you do want to join Power Partners and the 106 organizations inside, you can at the very end of that too. But the first 45 minutes, I'll just walk you through how to really take the blueprint and apply it right away. And since we only have like 3 minutes for questions, I want to give you my contact information. If you have other thoughts, questions, you're trying to design a habit, you want a little bit of feedback, Instagram is the one social media platform I'm kind of on the most. You can shoot me a DM. I'd be happy to talk you through it, send you a little voice memo. And there's my other contact information as well. So, okay. Hi, Tim. Hi.
And you don't, and we don't have to rush, by the way, because let me
Okay.
just tell folks what's next. You should check your inbox for the 3 people that opted into text updates. You should have gotten a text on what's happening next, and you got to check your email and the lobby. But what's happening now is on demand. So, meaning that's the on demand section that's videos on demand. Some of them are short, some of them are an hour long. We have a whole hour for this. So, Mallory, we don't have to rush out of here if people want to actually chat live right now. If they're into the conversation, then this is how you can spend your time. I eventually want to get a little lunch, but that's about it. Um, so if folks have questions, this is something that we can hang out on the main stage right now. That's perfectly fine, and do that. Keep that live for maybe about 5 minutes or something like that. I think that sounds fine. So do we have any questions for Mallory? Yes, this is a great session. Mallory also does have another great session with Kashana Palmer that is on demand. Let's see. Well, you've been following the chat, right?
I have not, but I'm scrolling through. But I'll just say I'm seeing some things right at the end here that I can pop as the questions come through. I'll have you watch the questions and
Hmm.
I'll just go through. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. It might knock you down while you're scrolling. I've noticed it does that, but
Oh,
keep going.
that's okay. So I just want to encourage you guys. I'm seeing a lot of things around the celebration ideas, which I love. And one of the things I really want to encourage you is to get super, super specific about it, right? So I'm seeing something like celebrating the process and the planning for fundraising. Get really specific about what part of the process do you want to celebrate? What part of the planning do you want to celebrate, right? Because that's going to really help you be able to tailor and design the habit very specifically for that, right? So, and then make it as small as possible, because that's the other thing that happens, right? When we try to set a habit around a really big thing, then it makes it really hard to celebrate. Okay, do you celebrate the planning process at the end when you have the full plan? But if you want to keep that planning habit going, you need to be celebrating a lot sooner and with a lot smaller milestones. So I hope that is helpful as you think about how to break that out.
Awesome. And Aaron did point out you can speed up the playback of on demand if you wanted to skip something. I am going to put in the stage chat here the session survey. Going to have a drop down of all the main stage sessions, and also this is something that you can reference for the product sessions that are happening in the afternoon. So that'll be the drop down. The enhanced and community ticket workshops have their own survey that you'll see within those rooms. So cool. Mallory, we got some chat coming in. So, yes, I really appreciate the positioning of hope as the antidote to fear. Gratitude and abundance can also be good antidotes to fear for me. Well, Lena, we're very grateful that you're here
Yeah.
to hear that, to say that, and grateful that you said that too. Elizabeth says, in what ways do you celebrate with your team?
So, one of the things, well, I don't have a fundraising team right now, right? I'm a consultant, but I'll tell you how I celebrate folks inside my program. So, the thing that's really interesting about celebration is even small moments of celebration can encourage our like adoption of that behavior in the future. So even something like when someone finishes a video of mine, having confetti fly everywhere and celebrating that they finished it, that's enough actually to have a positive emotion tied to that behavior that helps encourage momentum forward, right? So some of the things you could think about is depending on how folks submit their call lists for you, right? Like what's happening when your team reports back that they've made a certain amount of calls? How is that being celebrated? Or even every single call, right? I remember with an old team, I had a little like bell, like one of those fun bells that you kind of imagined happening in like a warehouse or something when something big happened. Yeah, I had like a bell where when folks would share, like would say, like, I just called blah, 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 we'd ring the bell and everyone would cheer, right? Things like that, they build culture and community around celebration. And my guess is once you start to do more of that, you're gonna even find other opportunities. Like right now, I want you to just kind of be prepared to like see other opportunities for celebration that perhaps you haven't been considering before.
North Texas Giving Day has, and actually our Neon Giving Days team, Gong. big gong.
Mm.
So maybe not everybody wants to have a gong go off, but for the giving day itself, and North Texas just did $66 million.
Mm.
And earlier this year, Give NOLA did really, really well, and we have both a Give NOLA representative and a Neon representative that are going to talk about how to turn that excitement, that celebration,
Mm.
into year-round success. So that's a product session that you can see. We've pinned it to the event chat, by the way, so you can also know where those sessions are going to be.
And
So yeah, love that.
yeah. And when you were doing that, I was even imagining like a bat hitting a ball, right? Like, so like find a sound that is related to your organization in some way that evokes an emotion, right? If you run a like kids sports program, like maybe it's the sound of a bat hitting a ball, like something that like kind of builds that culture into the way you celebrate can be really fun.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions for Mallory today? Cool.
Great. So the thing I just want to say, you guys, is play around with this. Like, go, like, play around with these habits, try them out, see what works for you, see what doesn't work for you. Like, and just viewing it from the perspective of designing the habits, not you as a person and how you're doing related to how easy it is for you to adopt the habits is super important, right? To just sort of remove that personal nature and recognize that this is just another thing to be designed to use these different tools and to find ones that work for you, right? So my hope is that, you know, most of these work for you, but maybe there's going to be 2 or 3. Even if that's the case, you're going to see some pretty game-changing results from just doing 1 or 2 of these.
So yeah, I mean, it's so powerful to just kind of like internalize this type of stuff. So, Mallory, I am so thankful for you for also being a sponsor of the Generosity Exchange to make this event happen. One of the things that we're so proud of, just so you folks know, is that um, we put this on as a celebration of the work that you folks are doing. And so every single session has been crafted with care and love. Every single one of our speakers is being paid. All of you also have a series of special gifts that you can find in the digital swag that we want to give back to you. There's a whole awareness retreat. We have some social hour stuff tonight that you can find in the on-demand section, so join us later for that. But I just put it in the stage chat where to find that on-demand content. Somebody was asking where to find the Kishana Palmer talk with you. Just click that link. You'll be able to choose it, and it's their videos. We put together a bunch of videos for you from our sponsors and some special stuff as well. So, Mallory, any final words before we sign off today?
No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And you know, I just am so grateful for nonprofit leaders and fundraisers. And I know how hard it is to be in your shoes and how much you're juggling. And I'm grateful for community and opportunities like this where folks are coming together and sharing their wins and what's hard. And to just know that, you know, this conference is going to meet you in so many different places that you're at and you're doing great. I mean, I think one of the things that was just so important for me to recognize is that like you're a great fundraiser. Like if you feel uncomfortable fundraising, that does not mean you are not a great fundraiser. You are. This is a really hard thing to do. Change making is automatically going against the grain, right? You are trying to create movement and to change the status quo. And that's really hard work. And moving money is really hard work. And so just to celebrate you and say you're doing great and thank Neon for providing a place to celebrate that and learn.
Well, thank you, Mallory, for coming today. And we're so grateful for all the work that you're doing. And I know that this is definitely not the last time we're going to see Mallory. So, um, you know, enjoy on demand. Go get some lunch.
Yeah,
Go
go
walk
get some lunch.
outside. That's what I'm going to do. Honestly, I'm gonna take a little. I've been sitting at the desk the whole time, so going to take a little break. But folks, we'll see you in a bit, and then we're going to come back to the main stage at the half an hour mark at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 for our product keynote. So we'll hear from Colin Pizarek, a little bit from me, and then I'm going to join live for any questions that you may have for that and any of the year-end stuff. I'm going to give a really great overview of the free things we're doing for end of the year support. So see you in a bit.
Bye.